So I'm going through my comic list, and I realized that we went over Kingdom Come issue 1, and then life happened. And this was back when I was in the old house, and we moved, and yeah. So we were at the library, found the collected trade. So rather than dig out my original issues, we are now diving back into issue 1, and my goodness, I'm still to this day love the work that Alex Ross did in this book. And I don't know about y'all, but I remember when Kingdom Come was announced, I couldn't get my hands on it, as I've said in many videos, where I grew up, comic shops, for whatever reason, could not, for the life of them, keep a shop open. But thankfully, even at that time, with direct market kind of taking over, so you couldn't find comics as often in like grocery stores like when I first started, we had Wizards. So this kind of how I knew. And what's funny is I never knew the story, but I knew more about the Easter eggs. Like it would kind of point out, so like I sat there for hours as a kid poking through saying, okay, this is this, this is this. So, you know, we see some obvious ones off the top. We see Dick Grayson, Wonder Woman, Donna Troy, Soups, obviously, Power Girl, Flash, that's Jay Garrick. And that's one thing that I like about Kingdom Come that I will say too, kind of on another antidote, is I like that how this is sort of like an extended universe of Earth 2, essentially, because in here there's no Hal Jordan, there's no Wally West, there's no Barry Allen. The Green Lantern, of course, is Alan Scott, and then the Flash is Jay Garrick. And then, of course, we have Hawkman, Carter Hall. And then, of course, Superman has that Earth 2 look about him. So it's just an interesting way, like if Infinite Crisis on Infinite Earths didn't happen, this would kind of been an interesting conclusion to Earth 2 in a way. That's just my personal opinion. What do you guys think? And just to kind of bring you all up, if you haven't been going through this with us, if you haven't, I'll make sure to get a playlist done once this is all gone through, but I will link issue 1. Now, what happened is Superman disappeared after an issue with this guy named Magog, which we don't know a whole lot about at this point. Superman just kind of sequestered himself, and we thought that he was in Smallville, but he's in the Fortress of Solitude, kind of reliving his roots on Kansas in this simulated area. But at the end of the book, the guy that we're following, the narrator, I cannot remember his name, it's this old gentleman. He says, even the bystanders freed themselves from the cable car. They knew. We all did. We knew and remembered. And I love how Mark Waid says, look, up in the sky. And then we get the memorable, beautiful shot of Superman holding all this wreckage from this like Joker-esque cult follower. He says, he not turned his back on us. He stands in the sky, faith rewarded. He's returned. Now, he starts getting visions from this other character, which I cannot remember his name either. I'm sorry. That's how bad of a reviewer I can be at times. But he's seen like this Armageddon future, kind of like John in the Bible. And we see this cover. And so he goes from this smile and saying, oh, faith restored. Dear God, the threat of Armageddon hasn't ended. It's just begun. And that's how issue 1 ends. So it's just like, okay, Superman's back, but nothing's happening. And so I like how Mark Waid went in writing this, takes beats from the Bible to kind of give it that very epic end of the world feel. And each issue kind of opens with this sort of ambiguous, very beautiful piece by Alex Ross. And it says, and I saw 7 angels which stood before God. And another angel came and stood at the altar having a golden censer. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar. And the 7 angels prepared themselves to sound. And I believe that a lot of this is coming from the book of Revelation. I could be wrong, but we see kind of a reflection of what happened. He goes, to sound, angels. No, I'm with the angel, aren't I? Because he essentially is just kind of becomes an observer with the Spectre. Where have you taken me? I no longer have any sense of time or place. Time has little meaning where we walk, Norman McCay. We move freely from moment to moment, guided by your visions. I show you only that which we must see. Are you disoriented? Enormously. I wasn't really asleep, and yet I was dreaming. Were you? And so I like how organically within the narrative, rather than just saying like, in this type of story setup, meanwhile, or a black page that says months later, we don't really have a sense of time. we are essentially just like Norman McCay here. We are a third person viewer. And so it kind of has that Scrooge-esque feel about it. And we open up on this guy. He goes, "This is my country." And so we see Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. And I mean, you can see that, again, kind of going into symbolism. We see that Statue of Liberty cracked and broken. So a very visual, semi on the nose, but you get the idea that we are in a cracked world. But what makes it laugh, kind of have a little bit of levity to this really heavy story. I love how it says Lobo was here. And at this time, guys, if you weren't reading DC, obviously I read what I could, but Lobo was everywhere. He was in Wizard. Any chance you can get someone like Lobo or Pitt or Spawn, they were always in the mix. So I love that we at least get a Lobo nod here. For years, the Americommando and his Minutemen have protected the U.S. from foreign threats, only to have looked the most insidious menace of all, the poor, the tired, huddled masses camping on our shores, begging citizenship. You migrants dare expect sanctuary? America's not as big as it used to be. For God's sakes, Kansas is gone. And this is sort of what starts kicking everything off, and what brought Kal-El back was all these heroes that were begat from the legends. When Superman left, all of our heroes kind of left Earth. So I'm thinking that's where Hal and everyone went, because a lot of characters disappeared, but they said a lot of them went to the stars, different planets, da-da-da-da. And so they didn't have anyone to guide them. So they grew up with this sense of entitlement. And they just break out in senseless battles on the street, hurting citizens for no reason. I was going somewhere with that. And now I don't remember. Oh, Kansas. Thank you for reminding me. Magog is leading a faux Justice League, essentially. And they get into this major battle in Kansas. And they end up killing Captain Atom. And Captain Atom obliterates Kansas to like this radiation style, like level, like Fallout 4 type style. And so that's what he means by Kansas is gone. We can't house you. We can't even feed you now. But still you force yourselves on us. Well, no more. And so this is a really hard read, to see that the point of entry for a lot of people that have hopes and dreams that this type of stuff's happening. And then all of a sudden, so we will defend this nation against, defend yourselves, Americano. The land is ours to guard. America, love it or leave it. Good God, the bystanders. And again, just no sense of like regard for human life. These aren't heroes, they're madmen. They're ready to battle over territory without bothering to care who's caught between them. Someone should do something. And then again, another gorgeous splash page. And I like how the Spectre just says, indeed. And this is I think the original Ray, which it wasn't Ray Palmer. It was a different type of character. I can't remember a whole lot about the original Golden Age Ray. So Supertron, if you're watching this, brother, please fill us in the comments. But then, of course, we get old school Wonder Woman, Kal-El, Hawkman, Kara, Jay Garrett, and Alan Scott. And when I saw this, you get this swell of pride that you know these heroes, and you're thinking, okay, we're going to get some hope here. Just kind of how we thought we were at the end of issue 1. And so that's one thing about the running theme of this book, is you feel hope, but there's always this underlining threat. And of course, Superman just tears them apart. And what I love is how these characters are working together. You see Jay and Alan kind of smiling at each other. So if you've noticed, all through the years, it's always Green Lantern and the Flash that are like the closest. Barry and Hal, Hal and Wally, and then Wally and Kyle. And then, of course, it's just like, I don't know, it's an interesting combo how they always put these two together, because they always supposed to have like different type of personalities, where Hal originally, it wasn't the goofball that he was later down the road that they've kind of portrayed him. He was a little more serious and kind of playful. Like, he was a little more reckless. Wally was, or not Wally, Barry was the more serious one. And they just, those type of personalities just always worked with one another. And while that's happening, there's these two characters, which I cannot remember. It says, no, the Minutemen are distracted. We're losing our mental link. Then concentrate. Command them to fire at anything that moves. Tell them. And I just love how we just get this moment of this character just hiding in the shadows, and it's just this look that just makes me laugh. But we see this character, I'm like, who the hell is this? This is Red Wobbin. Red Wobbin. Say that 3 times fast. And no, not the bottomless fries restaurant guys. This is Dick Grayson. And when you read the back, because there's a character spread that we will get into once we finish this overview. Alex Ross was talking about how when he was creating Dick's uniform for this futuresque look, I like how he said that it would make sense for him to kind of take on the more persona of Batman, hence why they kind of gave him more of the cowl and just that very Batman look. And this is I believe the first time that we've seen this uniform, and it's post Batman R.I.P. Grant Morrison, where we see is it Tim Drake? No, yeah, it's Tim Drake in that universe because Dick is Nightwing. But Tim Drake kind of dons this uniform. I didn't like this iteration of it. When they went in the New 52, the more militaristic style looked cool. But just knowing where that came from and the idea of what they were trying to bring with this character, it's like, hell yeah, I can see Dick Grayson doing that. And essentially what happens here is Superman says we need to go talk to, what is it? Hold on. No. The UN building. And I like how the UN building essentially looks like the old Hall of Justice. Just to kind of, again, one of those little Easter eggs that they pointed at. And they're saying, you heard me, hold page 1, second coming of Superman, making a statement. Good afternoon. Many of you may remember us. We've been away for a while. That was our mistake. In our absence, a new breed of metahumans has arisen. A vast phalanx of self-styled heroes, unwilling to preserve life or defend the defenseless. And what I like about this, as we're going through this, I like how Superman doesn't have that look, that hopefulness that you would normally see in Kal-El's face. And that's another thing that I want to point out here is when Diana comes and talks to him about everything that's going on, she says, Clark, don't call me that. And so she catches herself through this whole book saying, Kal-El. And so at this point, he's shed his human side, and he's basically just full-on Kryptonian. So again, kind of having that duality. That, yes, Superman's back, but he's missing something. Just a nice little nod, doing this in visual storytelling. A legion of vigilantes who have perverted their great powers, who have forsworn the responsibilities due them. We have returned to teach them the meaning of truth and justice. Together, we will guide this new breed with wisdom, and necessary with force. Above all, we will restore order. We will make things right again. But going back to Superman not having his humanity, you can see the very stiff look. Are you prepared to shut down those who don't honor your principles? I don't anticipate anyone acting without our sanction. Anyone? Would that include Magog? Superman, are you truly prepared to confront Magog in light of what has gone before? And he's actually sweating, thinking about this. And Wonder Woman, and that's another thing, Diana steps in a lot for him because she knows what he's struggling with. And we have no idea what it is yet, which I like that it's kind of shrouded in mystery for the time being. Magog will be dealt with. If he surfaces, given the consequences of his actions in Kansas, that seems unlikely. And without answering any more questions, they disappear. And of course, all the world leaders are like, ladies and gentlemen of the delegation, anyone here delighted with what we just heard? No. Why am I not surprised? There's a fear in the room. No. A validation of fear. Long have these mortals suspected that they are no longer the captain of humanity's destiny. You said you're here to judge a coming evil. Superman is somehow entwined in all this sin, but what exactly is it? The answer to that question remains locked in your prophetic dreams, McCay. What do you see? What do you hear? A jumble of images, a cacophony of apocalyptic verse. It still makes so little sense. Superman said his league will grow. Who else will he call to his aid? And I like how the Spectre just says, we shall see. And of course, True DC form, Superman flies to Gotham. And again, just like how we're seeing Kal-El shredding, stepping away from his humanity, we see Wayne Manor is completely destroyed. Bruce, I know you're down here. You can't hide from me. So even though the manor is in shambles, look at the cave. Everything in liquid, in water, the penny, just all his heirlooms, his trophies that you would see from the Golden Age that he cherished are now just so much trash. And I like how, as Clark finally finds him, he goes, I bow to your superior wisdom. After all, you know all about hiding. Don't you, Clark? Don't call me Clark. What happened to the manor? Once my identity got exposed, Bane and Two-Face happened to it. Doesn't matter. I have everything I need down here. Besides, it's not as if anyone's intruded on me. That hardly ever happens. Clark. That's right. Someone told me your knights become free once genocide blew up Arkham Asylum and everyone in it. Not to mention Bell Reef Prison and Blackgate. Not an action I condone. But tell me, the thought of it doesn't give your invulnerable skin a little tingle? I don't have that darkest side. Tell that to your tailor. Black's the new look for you. Bruce, the League needs you. I'm busy. Too busy to help save the world? The crisis at hand isn't new, Clark. Where have you been? Oh, I'm sorry. Perhaps I should ask Magog. And so I just like how Bruce pokes and pokes and prods. And finally, Superman gives up. And then we see Ollie. He knew we were here. I could feel his x-rays. Hell, I'm probably sterile now. Let it go, love. And so we see Ted Korg, we see Dinah, Black Canary, and Ollie. Who? Oliver Queen, Dinah Lance, Ted Korg, Urban Warriors. Actually, Ollie, given the low level of retrogens involved, I calculate nothing intrinsically harmful about... Stop making the world safe for science, Beetle. Let an old man be paranoid. Of course, if you're really after you, it ain't paranoia, is it, Bats? And one thing that I like that a lot of people I don't think really noticed, and they kind of touched on it in the CW live action, but we see this interesting suit that Bruce is wearing. And Ross pointed out that after years of what happened, and of course referencing Bane, so Nightfall is involved in this universe, his body is broken. And so he has to use this exoframe to move. Hence why he's not Batman, and he uses, where is it? These robots, which look like the old 1950s Batmobiles, to patrol the streets. And in issue 1, the Spectre even says the Batman has his city under control. So he's kind of got a big brother thing type going on, but he also knows that something is coming with everything that's happened with Magog, Superman's return. And Oliver basically says, is he aware of our plans? In time, the League will do serious damage. If they're allowed into our arena, the world is doomed. Superman has no idea what he's really up against. Fortunately, we have our own team to call and to play. Now, this is interesting because, again, we just kind of get images. We don't get a whole lot of who's who here. So we see that the Black Canary mantle has gone to the daughter of Dinah and Oliver. We see Jade, which is the daughter of Alan Scott. I'm not too sure who these characters are. This is the new Wildcat. What's his name? Is it Wildcat or Black Cat from the JSA? And so I used to know all these characters by heart from reading Wizard. And then, of course, Dr. Fate. Just a great little team. He says we have our own team to call and to play. You sound as if we have a plan. Does Batman ever not have a plan? We've got contacts across the world. It's time we drew that web tight. And so again, time passes. And so as hours fold into days, we bear silent witness to Superman's squad while they silent skirmish after skirmish. Whenever possible, Superman negotiates peace. Whenever impossible, he enforces it. At every turn, transforming enemies into allies. And so again, we get that sense of peace and like hope because we see the Justice League cleaning up the town. We see here kids pointing at these myths that are now back. And while the world, hungry for hope, gradually surrenders its fear to its skies, with a cadence almost military, the League marches from shore to shore. Together they act as an unstoppable unit, breaking rank, only occasionally. And then we see that even though, like I said, there's this bubbling cauldron underneath it all, we see Wonder Woman just smashing this guy. He goes, Diana, take a breath. They're not evil. They're just misguided. And so even though Clark is shredded, he's cast off his humanity, we still see Clark Kent to a degree. How badly? If they want to act like warriors, I'll show them war. You're right. They seem to have learned little regard for human life. And there is nothing more sacred than that. Now, I don't want to put a pin in here and say something. Through this whole book, we see Batman and Superman at odds. You know, Batman essentially has his outsiders, and of course, Superman has the League. But what I like is both characters aren't portrayed as evil. Like, you don't see either of them as like, oh, he's a jackhole, blah, 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 blah. We see the points on both sides. We can see the error of both of their ways. Even Diana, even though she's trying to teeter with the humanity that Clark is missing. So again, this moment here, no matter, even if it's a small little page, we feel Clark's heart. And I say that to say this, because yes, even though I enjoyed Injustice Gods, the comic, I hate that they essentially, like, you see why. I mean, it's understood in that series why Superman becomes the way he is. But I like in this one because we don't really have like a super civil war. We see two different factions trying to do the same thing essentially. And then we get to a whole slew of interesting villains. And they are just as corrupt as ever. But what's interesting here, within it, we'll get into all these characters in just a moment. We see Selina Kyle and Edward Nygma. Selina, what's the lookout on? Whoa, pardon me for questioning, but you're impeding public service. You're arming metahumans. Wouldn't that all serve to make the world a worse place to be? Where does the mankind liberation part come in? Did I miss something? And then, of course, Lex. Selina, for your own good, keep your guest in line. Remember, dear, curiosity killed the cat. Actually, Luthor, I had a similar concern, and I'm not 100% sure who this cat is. He goes, may I assume that the MLF works then to raise the stakes rather than lower them? And so we kind of get the villain plot. Lex Luthor going under the auspice that they are working for humans against this new increasing metahuman concern. But what they want to do, well, let's get into that later. But as this goes on, and also keep this guy in mind, because I really want to get into him at the end of this. It's an interesting little tidbit to, let's just say Damian Wayne at the moment, and leave it at that. Now, again, we see this character walk in. Lex, of course, seeming like a cool customer, in control, which brings us to our new problem. The resurfaced Justice League and how their untimely arrival has turned our 10-year agenda into a 10-day stratagem. I never dreamed they'd return, not in a million years. Nevertheless, the gods have stepped down from Olympus, and frankly, I see several ways to turn their arrival to our advantage. In fact, by entering into a certain alliance, I can guarantee a chance to hasten the current crisis to its end by exacerbating it. And in the meantime, we have nothing to fear from the League, not even from Superman. I just love how the name drop, he just starts coughing on his cigar. He will not touch me. He will not. He cannot. In fact, I've got the most marvelous anti-Superman plan. Isn't that right, boy? And so we see, absolutely, Mr. Luthor. Who? The Captain of Lightning and Thunder. Come, we have spent too much time wallowing in sin. And it just continues, guys. I mean, I will say this. Kingdom Come is one of these books where You know, you can kind of sit down and read certain comics and it's just like bam, action with a couple of emotional moments. You're like, damn, that was fun. This is a fun read, but this is one of these types of books where you don't fly through it. You stop, read, and just like old school art like Jack Kirby's or George Perez's, you don't blow past the panels. You look within each thing, seeing different little moments. So this is like a nightclub for superheroes. And Superman basically comes into the midst of it. And damn, doesn't that not look like something from a movie? And he says because of all the tension and escalation and stuff he's trying to stop, he goes, this doesn't help. Party's over. And so he's basically saying, join me or be hunted. I want you to join the League willingly. Before you do, you should know that we have rules. Heroes act in certain ways. This isn't it. Those of you who take up with us willingly will be expected to be as responsible as you are powerful. You'll be expected to behave better. Those who don't will be dealt with. And as he's leaving, we see an arrow shoot into the night. And I like how Oliver says, so, you heard Big Blue's pitch. Now for the Democratic response. And so we like how you see both sides of these factions recruiting from the same pool. And then, of course, the little nods. Like we see Deadman. This character here, I cannot remember her name, but she goes, I thought my dad was full of crap for being drafted by that guy, but now, God, I'd follow that man into Apocalypse. He's right, you know. The League knows the way. So I cannot remember her name, but if you look at her hair, her eyes, this is the daughter of Dick Grayson and Coriander. This is the daughter of Barda and Scott Free. So it's just a cool little moment. And then somewhere in here, and I cannot find it. Oh, there he is. A very, very old Beetlejuice-looking Lobo. And that's what I mean. Little things. Solomon Grundy. The old fart from the Marvel family that I cannot stand. Uncle Marvel, or whatever his name was. Cannot stand him. But yeah, he's in here. You take time after you've read. Let it process. Enjoy the paneling, guys. But yeah, issue 2, you just start to feel all these things starting to happen, and you get all these little tingles of yes, they are member berries, but it's still a grand operatic story that's still reprinted to this day and talked about worldwide and has been adapted God knows how many times at this point. So, Kingdom Come, issue 2. If you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever you get your action figures and comics. Grab this series or support your local library and get the collected trade and read it that way. If you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little Batman bell, next subscribe. That way as I can upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.